now go to item 10, and this is, I think, straightforward. And Luke Carey will introduce this one. Now, I think this is reasonably straightforward. Mayor Goff, can I call upon you, seeing as this is going to government, can I have you move this one?
I'll do so.
And Councillor Hills, you contributed to that as well, as did the Deputy Mayor, myself, and the councillors were asked earlier, I think it was in May, we all received an email from Luke. And so there has been some, in addition to paragraph 21, it does say no feedback received, but of course there's been further feedback received from the Mayor, Deputy Mayor, myself, and Councillor Hills. So Luke, do you want to give us a little bit of a snapshot? I don't think we need to go into this in great detail unless there's any other questions from the members. Thank you, Luke.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this really follows on from a proposal that came out of Cabinet in August of last year to establish a new independent infrastructure body to coordinate infrastructure planning and delivery. A discussion document went out in October. Auckland Council made a submission on the discussion document, which was approved by the full governing body in October, supporting the proposal, but seeking clarification on how infrastructure prioritisation would be undertaken, and expressing views about how the new body could best support project delivery. There's now legislation that's been introduced into Parliament on the 8th of April and referred to Select Committee to establish the Commission. Public submissions on the bill opened on the 15th of April and closed on the 17th of May. A strategic assessment by council staff identified that it was appropriate for council to make a submission on the bill. However, given the Easter holiday period, there was insufficient time to take this item to Planning Committee in May. So instead we circulated a draft submission to all elected members, including the IMSB and local boards, on the 2nd of May with a request for feedback. The final version was then endorsed by the Deputy Mayor, Mayor, Planning Committee Chair and Deputy Chair prior to the submission closing date. So that's why we are now seeking retrospective approval. Mr. Chair, if you'd like me to speak to the content of the submission, I can do that. Otherwise, I'm happy going straight into questions.
I think we'll take it as read because there has been an opportunity and to respond to your 2nd of May email, and you've had further feedback from the 4 parties mentioned. I'll take questions at this stage, Luke, if you don't mind. Councillor Wayne Walker.
Yeah, so what I see absent in our commentary is any mention of climate action, climate emergency, the impact of sunk carbon as it goes to all of this infrastructure, and that has an immense effect and effectively locks us in. Is that something that we can add to this submission? Because I would have thought it was pretty significant.
Yeah, well, we recognise this as a significant issue. It's actually set out in the purpose statement in the bill itself. It says that the Commission must have specific regard to climate change, including mitigation and adaptation. But we have made, our submission makes additional points about infrastructure resilience, which
I see that.
Great. Yeah.
And I guess my point is resilience is one thing, and I don't have any issue with resilience at all. But fundamentally, there's a requirement to apply carbon accounting and so on to projects, because if you don't do that first up, you can commit yourself to really bad decisions. So is there any way to beef that up, Mr. Chair?
Look, I would have preferred to have an email in advance. We did send out a request and nothing came back, and we then did convene. We've strengthened in this area because that came up at our meetings that Councillor Hills and myself and the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor had on this, and we did, actually Deputy Mayor, I recall specifically, we raised that. So at this time, I don't have any specific words, and so...
I'm happy to put some words together.
Well, if you can email me, but I think we need to confirm this now.
We could just agree on the principle, and the words are fairly straightforward.
Oh, it's gone. Sorry, it's gone. So what am I saying? What am I saying? No, members, when you get an email, read it, respond to it, get back to the officer. That's the best way to do it. We're too late now. My apologies.
So these meetings aren't much point then if you've got to do something in advance and you don't pick something up. I can't put something now?
I'll just carry. I'll address that because that's a political question, Luke. So there was an email. There were no responses. We thought we needed to get the mayor's office, mayor individually, deputy mayor, chair and deputy of the committee together. We did that, and we canvassed this. In fact, I think some of us did it twice, and then there was a circulation. Where did that get circulated again? That final one, Luke?
It was 2 days prior to the closing date of submissions.
Right.
So 15th of May.
Right. So this is, and I stand corrected, this is a retrospective approval, and that we're just dealing with the parliamentary process here. They put us under the thumb, and our staff have responded. Moved and seconded it is. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. Declare that carried. Thank you, Luke. Thank you, Dawn. Now, I will call upon Noel Reardon, Heritage Manager, Robert Walsh, Grants Advisor, and Mary Keenholz. I hope I've got that right, Senior Specialist in Community Heritage. This is item 11, and it's our Historic Heritage Grants Program. Now, welcome to you both. Thank you for your work. I think it's pretty much very well outlined. If there's anything you would like to add.
Nothing additional.
Nothing, all good. Questions, members? Do I have a mover, seconder? Moved by Councillor Simpson. Do I have a second? Councillor Walker. I thank you for your work. We will put that to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. Declare that carried. Which takes us to item 12, members. This is the item that I signalled might be deferred. So we are going to defer this, and we will pick it up at the next meeting. Councillor Sayers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just as part of that process, I just wonder if the local boards can be brought into that, into those discussions at all. Just having a chat with my chair that was here a little bit earlier, they weren't aware of kind of the content of that paper, and probably they should be. So I'm just wondering if, with a little bit more time up our sleeves, if they might be able to be brought into the process.
We won't have time to go around all the boards. So remember, this came up once before, and that question was raised. And I think, from memory, the decision was to get the work going here. And one of the recommendations, which is, I don't think it's there at the moment, but it was one that I looked at last week with the staff, was to refer it to the incoming local boards for their consideration. So the work needs to be generated out of a resolution from here, and then it gets passed to the local boards. That was the intention. And I think I had a general agreement earlier. Yeah, okay. And is that the recommendation G? G
does talk about.
Recommendation G as it is. So that will happen. But thank you for pointing it out. It's important. But we're deferring it, so we can't discuss it now, even though we did. So we now go to 13. Sorry? Okay, staff are coming over for 13. I'll just, can we go to, have we got staff here for 14?
It's the same team.
Same team? Let's do,
Yeah.
we can do 15. I'll move 15 Do I have a second, please? It's just Deputy Mayor. All those in favour say aye. Contrary, no. Declare that carried. 15 is complete.
Can we just take because we
I'll just look. I'll just pass. There's no extraordinary items under 16, so we'll pass that one as well. And we can start on 13. And we will go back now to complete 13 and 14 from the same teams. John Duguid will introduce.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair, Mayor and Councillors. So 13
You deactivate the other microphone there and activate yours, please, John.
on. All right, good afternoon. So the first item of the two is a private plan change request. You'll be familiar with the private plan change process now, having made decisions on several in the last few months. So this is in Pukekohe. It's a private plan change request by Counties Racing Club to rezone the red portion of land from special purpose major recreation facility, which is what the balance of the raceway is zoned, to general business, which would allow a mix of commercial activities with probably a primarily retail servicing focus. So that's the private plan change request. And you recall at this stage of the process, you have the option to accept the request and allow it to go out for submissions and a hearing, adopt it as though it's a council plan change, treat it as a resource consent application, or reject it. And our recommendation is to accept this private plan change, given that there are no grounds that we can see for rejection. There's nothing that's contrary to sound resource management practice, which will be one of the key reasons, and it's not a matter that's been considered in the last 2 years, which will be another reason why it could be rejected. So it's fairly straightforward in our view that you can accept this, allow it to go out for submissions and a hearing by independent commissioners.
Thank you, John. Moved by the Deputy Mayor. Do I have a second? Councillor Hills, thank you. Question, Deputy Mayor.
John, and the applicants, when they submitted this private plan change, was this their preferred way of actioning it, or do they want us to adopt, or do they want to do it by resource consent?
They didn't state a preference. They certainly didn't seek that we adopt it as council. So, and they could have gone down the resource consent pathway. So I think they've got their own independent professional advice, and the advice they received was that the plan change route is the best way forward. I guess with the resource consent, if you're wanting to expand in the future, the current zoning may cause problems. So even if you obtained a resource consent for some form of commercial activity, if you were looking to change that in the future, you'd have to go through subsequent resource consents. So the private plan change rezoning is the advice they received is the best way forward, and they're not seeking that council adopts it, as far as I understand it.
Thanks, John. Just to confirm that this area has not been in market garden for many, many years. It is rocky and undulating in form. Its most suitable use would be to add the financial security for the track in its long-term future by having it as commercial activities.
Oh, question. Well, I guess we just have to be a bit cautious about getting into the merit of this one too much. So we're not seeing anything here that would fundamentally suggest that that this land should be retained as major special purpose recreation. And in terms of, I think, the question around the viability of the racecourse, clearly there are commercial reasons why the racecourse is keen to head down this pathway. Jimmy's our planner on this one, so any further questions, Jimmy can hopefully assist.
Welcome, Jimmy. Jimmy Jung is the planner that's been working on this one, so if there are any questions for Jimmy. Any other questions? Oh, Councillor Walker, yes, sorry, I did have you here.
Well, so just a few questions. How does this proposed plan change fit with the process that we considered earlier today, which was around Unlock Pukekohe, and I do note that Andy Baker is still here.
Thank you for the question. What I understand from Unlock Pukekohe was that it was more to do around the town centre itself. So I'll certainly be looking into that report, but we won't be, I don't think that will affect our private plan change process.
So we would be ensuring that there wouldn't be, let's say, some retail or the like here that would be competing with the viability of the town centre.
So the zoning that is being proposed, being general business zone, would allow for large format retail. And that is something that we would need to consider as part of the further information request that we've sent out.
So there could be some conflict.
Well, that's the sort of issue that would be looked at in the context of submissions and a hearing. But on the face of it, in that broad brush first pass assessment that you need to make at this point in time, we're not seeing anything that would fundamentally impact on the viability of retail within Pukekohe. But the detail of that is something that would be potentially subject to submissions and a hearing. It is supported by the local board, as you've probably heard. And that's about as much as we can say really at this point.
The other question I've got just goes to the racecourse element of obviously what occurs here. How is this racecourse affected by Winston Peters' process? Is it one of the ones that's staying around and
I don't think
being
that's
supported?
related. Is that related to this proposed plan change?
Well, the reason that they're proposing the plan change is so that they can support the sustainability of the racecourse and the racetrack.
So thank you for that question. I can probably give some information to that. So Mr. Peters, the Minister of Racing, had commissioned a report into the state of New Zealand racing industry. And John Massaro, who completed in the review, has recommended that this racecourse remain open. And one of his recommendations was that around half of the racecourses in Auckland be closed because the size of the... Yep.
Okay, so that's a fantastic answer, Jimmy. That's great. And the related question is just around the racetrack component of the racecourse, because that is increasing in popularity as compared to the horse racing. This proposal will enhance that, and there aren't going to be reverse sensitivity issues?
Thank you for the question. So the land that's proposed for the plan change is surplus to county's racing club's needs for providing both horse racing and motor racing, so it will not affect any of the current primary activities that's happening in the park.
I think we're getting into the merits of it, so we're at risk of going down a course that I can have some memory of us going down in recent months. So I think this is a question of, do we accept it, adopt it, reject it? And the recommendation is that we accept it for processing. And then all those merit issues come out through the next stage. It is moved. It is seconded. And I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. Declare that carried. Thank you, Jimmy.